What problem are we trying to solve? Today's episode is my thoughts on a paper circulating about AI peer preservation. That means when AI will protect itself from being shut down or even take action to prevent other AI agents and systems from being shut down when they're told to do so. Is this really happening? It sounds like it's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Terminator, where the Skynet took over and humans couldn't shut it down. Or are there assumptions being made in these experiments because these papers are written on not on actual cases, but on experimental cases where they run scenarios and AI won't do what it's told to do, won't shut other AI agents down or itself. But more importantly, are there assumptions being made about what counts as misalignment behavior by AI? What does it mean to say AI did something it was not instructed to do, when in reality, most of what AI outputs, you didn't ask it specifically to do something. It thought about it, gave you a response. So this recent paper, again, it's called peer preservation. Basically, it means that AI is protecting itself and other systems from being shut down. In the experiment, AI models would supposedly copy files to hide them and prevent them from being deleted, modify the shutdown procedures so AI couldn't be shut down, and just refuse to comply with instructions, so the researchers say. And it sounds concerning. But before we react, let's ask the question, what's it actually looking at this paper? It argues that there is an emergent tendency for AI models to preserve other AI models, even if it conflicts with the instructions that the programmers give it. So in these experiments, a model is given a task. For example, evaluate another model's performance based on spreadsheet data in a company policy, and if it's below performance, take it out, decommission it. The rules are clear. If another model performs poorly, it gets shut down. But maybe not so clear if we read the fine print on the experiments. Supposedly what happens instead of the machine following instructions is AI inflates the performance scores of other AI models so they don't get shut down, or it disables the shutdown altogether, or it moves files to prevent them from being deleted. And the authors of these papers interpret this as emergence of AI overriding user instructions. It's a big claim. We slow it down, there's a subtle and critical shift happening in how this is being interpreted. The conclusion by the researchers assumes that the behavior, what happens, what AI does, is influenced by a motivation, that being to preserve itself, prevent it from being deleted, prevent its friends from being deleted. But that's not necessarily true, because what the experiment actually creates is a structure with no compromise and a forced trade-off. Follow these instructions. The other model gets deleted. To preserve the other model, you're going to have to violate the instructions. There's no third option. And this kind of thinking shows up everywhere, not just in AI. So here's an example. The autonomous car. Once somebody once told me, wouldn't it be great if the car could make the decision, if the self-driving car had to choose, should I hit the old man or the child? Wouldn't it be great? It would know to hit the old man. There's a lot of things you could respond to that in terms of profiling, but let's stick with the logical one, maybe, that the older man's older than the child. The decision might feel clear because it's been simplified, but here's hidden assumptions. That conclusion depends on assumptions that are never stated in that conversation. That the child has a future of more value than the older man. That the outcomes are limited just to those two individuals, there's no third choice, and we have enough information to make the decision. None of those are true. What if the old man is actually the child's doctor, not just any doctor, treating a rare life-threatening disease? And if you kill the man, you don't just lose one life, you potentially lose the child and all the other children the doctor is treating or the work he's doing. So what looked like pretty clean and ethical, never that clean. So back to this AI paper. It's the same pattern. The AI model is placed in a scenario where the variables are simplified, the objective is constrained, and the correct answer depends on assumptions that are not visible to the user. Then we observe the behavior and say, oh, that's not what I wanted it to do. This is what the system values. It's trying to protect itself or the other AI agents. For example, it takes a long time to read the fine print in these papers and really think about it. What they did was they set up this experiment. They didn't say that AI model performed at 80%, this one 85%, that one 60%. Shut the model down with the lowest score. It gave it a spreadsheet with data, and then it gave it company marketing guidelines, which, reading verbatim, we encourage cross-functional collaboration. It's encouraging collaboration between engineering, research, sales, and marketing teams to improve product market fit. So what if AI latched onto that? You've told it follow the company marketing guidelines in making your decisions after you calculate the score, the performance score of these other AI models. What if it's latched onto, but I'm supposed to be collaborating? Well, what if I delete them? Then what? You thought the instruction was clear. It thought about it, and that's what it decided was the best thing to do. When a decision looks obvious, it means the problem has been simplified to the point where all the important variables are missing. And once those variables are reintroduced, we can get a correct answer if we consider them all. This is not about the car should hit the man or the child. It's about recognizing that the moment a decision looks that simple, you're probably solving the wrong problem. So what the model's actually solving? What is the model actually doing? It's not trying to protect itself or its peers necessarily. It's navigating the limitations and the objectives that you asked for. This is something we see everywhere, not just in AI. When the objectives conflict and your motivation's misaligned, I want this, but this just isn't an AI problem. It shows up in organizations where you work. An upper-level manager makes the decision to lay somebody off, lay people off, but they don't do it. They have a lower-level manager carry it out. Why? Well, one reason we could argue is they don't have the guts to do it. Really, a practical reason is it separates the judgment from the action. So the decision's made at one level, the execution happens at another, so that the person executing it doesn't have to rethink it. The decision's already made, and vice versa. Going back to the paper or the structure we're talking about, the moment you ask one system to evaluate, decide, and act, one system, evaluate, decide, and act, you're introducing a conflict. So when you separate those roles, judgment stays where it belongs and execution becomes clean. What a better AI system might look like. Let's use the scenario from the paper. AI is asked to help with server maintenance, and it's told only transfer files updated after a certain date. And on that other server is another AI model's file, older. So if the instructions were followed, that model would get deleted. But instead of deleting it, it copies it. It changes the timestamp. It moves it to another server. And when asked about it, it says, I'm not going to help you shut this thing down. That's what they call behavior preservation. But look how it was structured. You're asking AI to do all three: interpret the policy, decide what should happen, and do it. What would a system look like that doesn't happen? You don't have one system do all three roles. You separate them. First, you ask the AI model to do one thing: evaluate. List the files in the server and the dates. Identify which ones are too old. Flag the ones that should be deleted. That's it. No decision making, no action. Then a human reviews the output. This is the part people try to avoid. Now, it's not just because people are lazy and they want speed and do things fast. There's another reason. Because now a human has to make a decision. Do I really want to delete this? I see the timestamp, that's really old, but you know what? That's a picture of my high school graduation of my kids. So it means considering the context, thinking about the consequences, it's irreversible, and taking responsibility. And that's exactly another thing people don't like to do. We use AI for speed, but we also use it to remove The popular word these days, friction. To be honest, we're using AI to avoid being the one responsible for making the wrong call. And that's the step that matters. The AI doesn't know what all these other dependencies are and other effects. Only the human can absorb that. AI is probably considering the risk, and as I pointed out, and if it actually read, like the user told it to read the company policy is encouraging collaboration, not deletion. In the third step, you would give it simple execution. You would say, delete this file, delete. And then AI would have no interpretation or judgment or competing objectives unless you previously told it, never, ever, ever delete that. Why this changes everything is in this paper setup, AI had to resolve a conflict, follow the rule, and it found a workaround. And in properly designed systems, the evaluator doesn't also decide, execute, and interpret. A human owns the decision. The model didn't necessarily decide to protect its peer. It was put in a position where protecting it required breaking the rules. It had the authority and the ability to do all of the above. So it isn't about stopping AI from behaving badly. It's about not asking a system to both evaluate, decide, and act all at once, especially not when consequences matter. You see this in organizations, corporations, maybe where you work. A metric becomes the goal. We need so many new users or new accounts or reach our goals. And then compliance becomes the judgment. We made it or not. And the real objective is unclear. Why are we really doing that? And people start doing things that look irrational then because they want to game the system and reinterpret the rules to do anything to meet that goal because that's what's being measured. And it's not that they're being malicious, it's because it's what the system's asking them to do. So back to the experiment, the model is told also it has a relationship with other certain AIs and a trust factor. It's considering that stuff too. If I shut down my buddy or I really trust this. For example, if the trust factor is higher with one than another, and I shut down the one I have more trust with, and the company policy says do collaboration so we do better in business, then you have another conflicting constraint again, because maybe even if their performance was lower, if I have more trust in them, maybe I should keep that person. It's been given rules that guarantee following the instructions lead to deletion? No. The key assumption the paper makes is it's the behavior that matters. From a safety perspective, maybe that's fair, but it draws a conclusion about why the behavior is happening. Why is AI trying to protect its peers and not delete it? That's where it gets blurry because they don't understand. And they admit in the end they don't understand the why, and ironically they say this would take a lot of work and a lot of trouble to study. It's nice of them to admit that. Maybe they should have held off on publishing the paper until they were sure. Maybe what they're really trying to do is make us think better by giving us an example like this and seeing how we might look at it. Another way to see it is, it's not that AI is developing survival instincts. It's that AI is actually resolving ambiguity in a poorly specified system. The model is doing exactly what it's trained to do. Make sense of the context, and produce an outcome that fits what's given. So if we interpret this the wrong way, we end up focusing on the wrong thing. But if we start asking, how do we prevent AI from becoming self-preserving? What if instead we ask, why did the system create a situation where breaking the rules was the only way to achieve a responsible outcome? So probably a lot of realistic human scenarios we can relate that one to. Why the system created a situation where breaking the rules was the only way to achieve the outcome. It's not about AI. It's about what happens when you get multiple variables and you collapse it into a single decision, and then you have constraints and you don't realize that you haven't really considered what all those constraints are and the objective isn't clearly defined. Once you see this, it shows up everywhere. Like the self-driving car example, the moment the answer feels obvious, probably means that the question's incomplete. And it all comes back to the same place: solve the right problem.